Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we try to turn dense research into some really vital insight. So if you're someone who feels like you're constantly navigating a world defined by, the tyranny of the endless to-do list, digital fatigue, crushing performance anxiety,
Yeah.
you're likely experiencing something the sources we read describe so well as the constriction of the heart.
It's a great phrase. It's really the spiritual equivalent of feeling boxed in, just unable to breathe or move. And it's fueling burnout and a lot of anxiety in modern life.
And for this deep dive, our source material offers this incredibly powerful counter-narrative. We're looking at a rigorous analysis of Surah Al-Inshirah, the opening fourth.
That's the 94th chapter of the Quran.
It's very short, only 8 verses from the early Mecca period. And the scholars we've read, they call it a time-transcending divine prescription for spiritual healing. It feels almost custom-made for these moments of peak stress.
Exactly. And our mission today is to analyze this surah, not just as a piece of history, but as a structured 3-stage roadmap for overcoming these very modern psychological burdens.
A roadmap, I like that.
It's a mechanism for generating active, confident hope, not just, passive comfort.
Okay, let's unpack this roadmap. Before we even get into the prescription itself, the sources insist we have to travel back in time.
Yes.
You have to grasp the sheer weight of the circumstances that triggered this revelation. You need to understand the crisis before you can really understand the cure.
Absolutely. The sources go into great detail on the historical backdrop, what's known as the Nuzul Sababi, or the reason for revelation. This surah, it arrives during the final, most desperate years of the Mecca period.
We're talking 13 years of sustained systemic persecution. This wasn't just physical danger, it was psychological warfare, right?
Oh, completely.
Now-
I mean, imagine the constant strain of mockery, of threats, of people trying to discredit your entire life's mission. And then on top of that, you have the 3-year social and economic boycott.
The abluka.
Right, the abluka. The early believers were essentially sealed off, which led to mass hunger and just extreme destitution.
And right after that boycott ends, the personal devastation hits. This is the year of sorrow.
The Huzun Senesi. It's just one thing after another. In rapid succession, the prophet loses the 2 people who are his absolute anchors.
His uncle, Abu Talib.
Who gave him that political security. And then his devoted wife and closest confidant, Khadija, who was his complete emotional and spiritual support.
That is just, it's an immense consecutive loss. And it drives him to what the sources say was the absolute lowest point of his human endurance.
He seeks refuge outside of Mecca, and this leads to the disastrous trip to Taif. He's looking for a new base for his message, and he's publicly rejected by the city's elders. He's insulted.
And then chased out of the city.
Chased out and stoned by children and slaves until his feet were bleeding so profusely that his sandals filled with blood. This was the moment of just ultimate spiritual and physical exhaustion.
So this surah, which is all about expansion and ease, arrives at the exact moment that this back-cracking load, the zero, was most acutely felt.
Yes.
But wait, here's a question. If you're in the middle of being stoned or you've just lost your wife, wouldn't a message like this feel, I don't know, like a spiritual platitude? How does it move beyond simple comfort?
That is the brilliant part of the structure. The surah doesn't offer comfort by denying the pain. It offers a mechanism for bearing it.
Okay.
And the sources make this crucial structural point. Inshirah arrived immediately after Surah Duha, which had already reminded the prophet of God's past help and continuous care.
So Duha said, look back, remember the good things.
Exactly. And Inshirah comes right after and says, now let's leverage those memories to build resilience for what's next. It gives you a structured, 3-phase therapy for current and future burdens. It proves that divine support is a continuous, forward-moving process.
That connection, that link between remembrance and action that sets up phase 1 of the prescription, that's Ayat 1 through 4, the trust foundation. It's like a mandatory mental reframing exercise.
It is. The surah starts with these powerful rhetorical questions, reminding you of 3 core, irreversible blessings that have already been granted. And we can map these directly onto psychological faculties.
The first one is the expansion of the breast.
Known as Sheri Sadra in the sources. Did we not open and expand your breast? Psychologically, this symbolizes an increase in your capacity for patience, for wisdom, for inner peace. It's like a pre-installed reservoir of resilience.
And the sources connect this to a narrative where negative feelings are literally removed from the heart.
Exactly. This is the purification component. True lightness starts with internal purification, replacing corrosive emotions like envy and hatred with compassion and mercy. It's a spiritual deep clean that gives you the space to handle external stress.
Okay, so the second favor then addresses that strain we talked about, the lifting of the burden.
This is the removal of the visor. And remove from you your burden, that which had cracked your back. Now, the modern application here is profound. Because the visor isn't just past sin, psychologically, it's the crushing weight of expected perfection, the heavy responsibility you feel for things outside your control.
The failure to meet impossibly high standards. I think everyone feels that. The weight of career expectations, perfect parenting, perfect health.
All of it. And how is it removed? By trusting in divine support and forgiveness. The relief allows you to be free from the shackles of that expectation. It lets you move forward with hope. You're commanded to acknowledge that the load has been addressed so you don't have to carry it alone.
But the third gift is maybe the most relevant to modern pressures of social validation, the raising of your fame.
Ref al-Dhikr. This was the divine answer to the humiliation he faced in Taif, to the constant social rejection in Mecca. His name is raised high, permanently linked to the remembrance of God.
So what's the implication for the listener today, the person struggling with feelings of worthlessness or dependency on, likes, promotions, status?
It's the ultimate antidote. It's a reminder that your true honor, your true value, is determined by your standing with God. And that's a source that can't be diminished by fleeting human opinions or social media trends. It grounds your identity outside of the volatile external world.
So phase 1 establishes this foundation of self-worth, capacity, and support. Then phase 2, ayat 5 and 6, that seems to be the very heart of the surah.
It is.
It's the principle that turns passive hope into an active, certain conviction.
This is the central, repeated promise. Verily with the difficulty there is ease. Verily with the difficulty there is ease.
Now, we often interpret that, I think most people around the world do, as meaning relief comes after the struggle is over.
And that is the critical linguistic detail that the sources really unpack. The word used is ma, which means with, accompanying, or alongside. It is deliberately not the word for after, which is bad. The slight linguistic shift, it changes everything about how you experience struggle.
So the solution isn't waiting for you at the finish line. It's hidden inside the difficulty itself.
Precisely. The remedy, the usur, is co-present with the ailment, the uthur. It means the very act of struggling. When it's done with spiritual intention, it generates the necessary relief alongside it. It's a mechanism of simultaneous growth and ease.
That's fascinating. And you mentioned there's a deeper linguistic proof that strengthens this idea.
Yes. The Arabic grammar itself is a reassurance. The word for difficulty is definite. It refers to the one single, identifiable struggle you are facing right now.
Okay.
But the word for ease is indefinite, which implies multiple, varied avenues of relief.
So for that one unique, overwhelming problem you're dealing with today, the text is promising at least 2 or maybe countless ways out that are already present or promised alongside it.
It is an immutable divine principle that just challenges despair. It transforms that passive hope into a confident conviction. This is the spiritual law of resilience. The darkest hour is closest to dawn, but the dawn starts breaking while you're still in the night.
That clarity takes us right into phase 3 then, ayat 7 and 8. So if phase 2 is the law of hope, phase 3 is the active behavioral prescription.
Yes, what's required of the believer?
In this action plan, it actually defies the modern human instinct to just, crash on the couch after finishing a massive task.
It's a command against spiritual and psychological idleness. Once you've received the assurance of ease, you have to adopt this dynamic posture against 2 enemies, idleness and meaninglessness.
The first command is the action plan against idleness. So when you have finished a task, then toil.
The command is fanzab, exert yourself. The message is constant, purposeful activity. And the wisdom is deep. Idleness, emptiness, they breed negative thought loops, anxiety, spiritual collapse. There's a famous quote from scholars.
What's that?
If you do not occupy yourself and your heart with truth, falsehood will occupy you. You have to constantly move from one good work to the next, never letting a vacuum form.
But sustained, tireless activity is exactly what leads to modern burnout, the Tugendmuslik we talked about. So how does the surah prevent this rush from just being pointless?
That's the frame provided by the final, crucial command. And to your Lord alone direct your longing. This is Farkab.
The ultimate spiritual anchor for all that work.
Exactly. Every ambition, every single effort, every goal must be tied to a higher purpose, God's pleasure. This is what prevents the effort from becoming meaningless fatigue. Your labor isn't for transient approval or wealth, but for an eternal goal. That makes the striving itself spiritually productive.
So let's bring this whole three-phase roadmap assurance, law, and action back to the modern listener. If we synthesize the Surah's wisdom, what's the divine prescription for our biggest problems today?
We can map the principles directly onto these modern afflictions.
Okay, let's start with stress and burnout, that feeling of being crushed, the izilme hissi. It's so often the result of just endless, pointless striving.
Right. So the solution is to integrate phase 2 and 3. Remember the ease with difficulty principle. The burden is already carrying the solution, so the striving is not hopeless. And you mitigate that crushing feeling by anchoring your ultimate goal to your Lord alone. That's phase 3. It makes your effort purposeful, meaningful, not just a pointless race for external metrics.
What about debilitating anxiety and future worry? The dread of uncertainty.
That calls for phase 1 application. You practice Tawakal trust. The prescription is to deliberately stop focusing on the uncertain future and instead contemplate moments in your past where God opened a path for you, where you experienced that expansion of the breast, the Sadr.
So you're building confidence in the future by verifying patterns from the past.
It's a psychologically sound method. You're building confidence in future assistance by seeing past divine kindness.
And finally, that universal struggle against feeling worthless or the heavy weight of past mistakes.
That's where the lifting of the burden, the visor, and the raising of your fame, the zikr, come in. You are commanded to internalize that your true value is defined by your standing with God. I mean, if the Creator has defined your fame as high and removed your burden, then no human opinion or past error can negate your worth.
We see this structure play out so beautifully in the story of Karam, the woodcarver, from the sources. He inherits this enormous debt, this responsibility.
His back-cracking load, his visor.
And he's just paralyzed by it.
Totally. But when he shifts his perspective, that's phase 1, he experiences what they call divine feraluk, or ease. The load didn't just disappear, but through that spiritual clarity, it became a lightness that was bearable. He could finally move.
And that movement led him straight into the action plan.
Precisely. His subsequent toil moving immediately from carving one piece to marketing the next was combined with a singular spiritual focus. That dynamic effort, anchored by a true purpose, led him not just to erase his debt, but to gain true, lasting honor. The prescription works. It shifts the internal reality first, which allows your external action to become fruitful instead of depleting.
So the Surah is teaching us that life is defined by zigzags, like a heartbeat monitor.
Yeah, it has to be full of these necessary ups and downs because a flat line, well, the flat line symbolizes death, non-existence. The value is in the movement, in the struggle, and the relief that's promised to come with it.
So it's far more than just a simple prayer or a verse you recite during hardship. It really is an active guide to life, an 8-verse action plan for spiritual and psychological resilience that redirects your focus from external strain to your internal strength.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If worldly struggles and ailments are seen not as interruptions, but as mechanisms that are actually designed to purify the soul and refine your character, does this change the way you approach your biggest daily problems, knowing that those difficulties might actually be the very seeds of your deepest tranquility?